What's goody, everybody? It's your boy Wilder42K, and we are so back in 2024. It's been a little while, and I know, I'm sorry, but we are here to bring you more sports and gaming content now more than ever, with a bunch of new series coming and continuing some of your fan favorites like the Why Does Everybody Hate series. Today, though, we're going to be starting a little docu-series that I like to call The Complete History, and it's time for the complete history of the Detroit Lions. At this point in 2023, the Lions still have a chance at the #1 seed in the NFC this year, but it hasn't always been that way. So let's take a look at how we got here. To do that, we have to take a trip all the way back to 1928. In 1928, a group of players from all different playing backgrounds, from semi-pro, independent, and even professional teams, came together in the city of Portsmouth, Ohio, and founded the Spartans. Come 1929, the city granted the Spartans funds to build a new stadium. By July of 1930, though, the Spartans were granted an NFL franchise, becoming just the second smallest city to earn the franchise title in the NFL, only behind their now long-standing rivals, the Green Bay Packers. In their first season in the NFL, they went 5-6-3, finishing 7th out of 11 teams. And just 2 years later, they sat in first place, winning the Iron Man game against the reigning NFL champs, the Packers, 19-0. This led the Spartans to take on the Bears in the first ever playoff game in NFL history, where they ended up losing to Chicago 9-0. At this point, the franchise had no money. Struggling financially, in came George A. Richards, who owned a Detroit-based radio station, WJR, and in 1934, he purchased the Spartans for a mere $8,000, which equates to just over $179,000 in 2023. You could buy the Lions cheaper than most mortgages, and Richards would go on to move the team to Detroit, taking on the moniker of the Lions, as Richards believed it would define them as king of the jungle or king of the NFL. The first year in Detroit started hot. They won their first 10 games of the season, but ended up falling short of the perfect season, dropping their last 3 games, 2 of which were to the Packers and Bears. Richards would go on to use his connections to radio and even NBC to broadcast what is now a yearly tradition, Lions football on Thanksgiving Day, which we have talked about in a previous docuseries video, and you can check that out in the description below. With immediate success, they went on to their first championship against the New York Giants, winning 26-7. After that, they went on to finish no better than second in the next 3 years, and over the next 13 following the championship run, they combined for a record of 55-80-4, which included a 2-10 season, a 1-10 season, and the dreaded 0-11 season, during which the 0-11 season, they failed to score more than 7 points in a single game, which also featured the last instance of a scoreless tie in NFL history. All hope wasn't lost, though, as many viewed the Lions as just a franchise quarterback shy from true potential. Come in 1950, and the Lions would go on to trade a fullback, yes, a fullback, for quarterback Bobby Lane from the New York Yanks. Man, how times have changed. A fullback for a quarterback. They ended up going 7-4-1 and 9-3 in the first 2 years under Bobby Lane, going to that National Conference Championship in 1952. Their first playoff appearance in 17 years, they would go on to defeat the LA Rams. They ended up taking on the Cleveland Browns in the first of a 4 championship matchup stretch against the Browns 17-7. And in 1953, they went 10-2, finishing with 8 All-Pros and 7 Pro Bowlers, winning the chip again over the Cleveland Browns 17-16. And in 1954, the 3rd straight year of going to the championship against the Browns, Paul Brown decided to get his revenge and ended up crushing the Lions 56-10. 1957 saw another trip to the finals where they were getting crushed at half against the 49ers, who had a 24-7 lead at halftime. Through the wall, though, the Lions player heard the 49ers cheering as if they already won. The Lions' backup quarterback would go on to lead the Rowdy Lions on a 24-0 comeback for a huge win to push to the championship game against the Browns, crushing the Browns 59-14, winning with a backup quarterback. That's 3 chips in 6 years and 4 in their first 28 years as a franchise. However, from here, it's a downhill slope as we know it. It's now 1958, and the Lions decided to trade Bobby Lane to the Steelers for quarterback Earl Morrall, shocking Lane and the Detroit fan base. It is said that when Bobby left the locker room, he cursed the Lions, saying the Lions will not win a championship for 50 years. Thus, the curse of Bobby Lane began, and the Lions have not returned to fight for a ring ever since. Though they didn't completely fall apart yet, the defense was still solid, including players like Joe Schmidt, Dick LeBeau, as well as Hall of Famer Dick Night Train Lane, going 7-5 in 1960, finishing in third place against the Browns, the last time the two would have ever faced each other in the playoffs since. Come 1962, the Lions beat up the NFL, going 11-3, including the Thanksgiving Day Massacre game against the Packers, their defense sacking the Packers quarterback 11 times in just that one game. After this, the Lions wouldn't reach the playoffs again until 1970, and in 1970, William Clay Ford Sr. bought a majority interest in the Lions for $4.5 million. From Richards buying the Lions for $8,000 in 1934 to a $4.5 million sale, I'd say that's a win for him. This is when retiring began to ensue. For the next decade, it was another struggle for the new owner Ford, not making the playoffs for 12 years. The Lions would just go on to average only 7 wins a season in the 70s, but hitting as low as 2 in 1979. In 1988 came a glimmer of hope for Ford when he fired then head coach Darryl Rogers and replaced him with one of the greatest coaches in Lions history, Wayne Fontes. In his tenure, he would go down as having the most wins and most losses in franchise history for the Lions. He also ushered in an NFL icon, a household name. And in 1989, with the 3rd overall pick, the Detroit Lions selected running back out of Oklahoma State University, Barry Sanders. In 1989, they finished 7-9 and 3rd in their division, but they realized they had a superstar on their hands with Sanders to build around. In his rookie year, he finished just 10 yards shy of the league's leading rusher at 1,470 yards and winning Rookie of the Year. Sanders went on to win the rushing crown in 1990 with just over 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. In 1991, the Lions finished 12-4 and won their division, making the playoffs and going up against a 90s powerhouse team, the Dallas Cowboys, beating the boys from Dallas 38-6 and making their first conference championship in 34 years, but would go on to lose to then Washington Redskins 41-10. They regressed the following year to last place in the division, but then bounced back and won it again the next year, falling in the wildcard round to the Packers. And in 1994, they clinched another playoff berth on the back of Sanders for the 3rd time in 4 years, but shockingly would go on again to lose to the Packers in the wildcard round. They would go 10-6 in 1995, and again lost in the wild card round, but this time to the Philadelphia Eagles. In 1997, Barry Sanders would lead the Lions to a 9-7 record with an MVP and Offensive Player of the Year season of 2,053 yards and 11 touchdowns, his 3rd straight triple-digit touchdown season as well. Another one-and-done year for the Lions in the playoffs, though, falling in the wild card round yet again. For those counting, that's 4 out of the last 5 years they made it to the wild card round but got knocked out. Sanders decided to retire at the age of 30 in 1998, shocking the world, leading the NFL in rushing yards 4 out of his 10 years, 3 MVP runs, receiving Offensive Player of the Year votes in 5 out of the 10 years. The Lions just could never get past the first round, and now it was time for a new millennia. A new millennia saw a turn for the worse, and in the year 2000, Bobby Ross, then head coach, resigned just 9 games into the season after a bad loss to the Miami Dolphins. Gary Mueller came in, and they were 1 win away from the playoffs when the Bears hit a 54-yard field goal, finishing the Lions' season at 9-7 and missing the playoffs. Following that season, Matt Millen shocked the Lions fan base again, replacing Mueller with a new head coach, Marty Mornhinweg, who led the Lions to just 2 wins in 2001, and 2002 saw a 3-13 season, and Marty was canned. Another coaching change came, and Millen brought in Steve Mariucci, who proceeded to go 11-21 in the next 2 seasons. Matt Millen was then extended for 5 years and ended up firing Marucci and hiring Rod Marinelli in 2006, their 4th coach in just 10 years. Marinelli would go on to go 3-13 in his first year, but it did end up leading to another future Hall of Famer in the 2007 draft, a wide receiver out of Georgia Tech, Calvin Johnson Jr. But in 2008, the Detroit Lions would do the unfathomable. They became the first team in the 16-game era of the NFL to lose every single game. 0-16. Only one other team has ever since accomplished this feat, and it was the 2017 Cleveland Browns. 2 franchises that once saw each other in the playoffs annually, now at the bottom of the barrel. Matt Millen was finally let go after just 31 wins and 84 losses in 7 years, and in 2009, it was a clean slate and a number 1 overall pick. With the #1 overall pick, the Lions selected quarterback out of Georgia, Matthew Stafford, pairing him with Kelvin Megatron Johnson. Stafford went on to become the franchise's leading passer in every major category, but finished 2-14 in his rookie year and 6-10 in his sophomore year. But in 2011, Stafford found his rhythm, hitting 5,028 passing yards and 41 passing touchdowns, paired with Megatron hitting 1,681 receiving yards and 16 reception touchdowns. They went 10-6 and were headed to the wildcard round, shockingly, where they lost again, but this time to New Orleans Saints, 45-28. In 2014, the Lions franchise faced a huge loss. Longtime owner William Clay Ford Sr. passed away in March of 2014 after owning the Lions for 51 years, in which he only saw his Lions win one singular playoff game. Martha Ford took over the team and won the most games in a season since 1991 at 11 wins on the back of the second-best defense in the NFL. However, the curse continued. The Lions lost to the Cowboys in the wildcard round once again, in which a controversial call occurred. A pass interference call was made, but ultimately was reversed, in which resulted in a loss for the Lions. The Lions would continue to hover from 2015 to 2017, making the playoffs one time, with another wildcard loss in 2016. Matt Patricia came in as the new head coach in 2018 and could not lead the team to more than 6 wins. Another reset incoming as Megatron retired and Stafford was gone to the Rams. A modern-day renaissance for the Lions was about to begin. Brad Holmes is brought in as general manager, and Dan Campbell is brought in as the new head coach for this renaissance. Dan Campbell brought a player's coach mentality, showing his passion for the sport, his players, and his franchise, igniting fires and a new energy in Detroit, a welcoming energy for the Lions fan base. In 2021, Penei Sewell was taken 7th overall in the draft, ushering in a defensive forefront for the Lions. Detroit also stole a 4th-round pick in Amon-Ra St. Brown, a wide receiver out of USC, who has been their leading receiver ever since. Not to mention Jared Goff finding a new footing after his time with the LA Rams. They still finished 3-13-1, but the Lions got Aiden Hutchinson in the 2022 draft, a hometown pass rusher, to even the score. In 2022, the Lions would finish 9-8, their best record since 2017, and second in the NFC North for the first time in 5 years. 2023 came in, and the Lions added to the offense and the defense in the draft. With the 12th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, they snagged Alabama star running back Jahmyr Gibbs and linebacker out of Iowa Jack Campbell in the first round. Another Iowa star was taken in the next round, and tight end Sam Laporta. With a star-studded free agency, the Lions also added C.J. Gardner-Johnson, David Montgomery, Cameron Sutton, Marvin Jones Jr., and Will Harris. This Lions team in 2023 has been everything we all wanted. As non-Lions fan, we can all appreciate their success. We are heading into the final game of the season, and the Lions have already clinched their division for the first time since 1993 and sitting at 11-5. Hell, I wasn't even born yet the last time the Lions won their division, and it just brings me a little bit of joy to see this team performing so well. But the history and the future of this team has yet to be written. Can they make it past the wildcard round? Can they end the curse of Bobby Lane? We will have to wait and see. If you guys all enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what team y'all want to see me look at the history of next. Much love, everybody. Happy New Year, and I will see y'all in the next one.